Crowhill here. Today we review a special ale and ask, war, what is it good for? Good evening, Pigweed.
Good evening, Crowhill. How about some beer and conversation?
Oh, that sounds like a great idea. What are we drinking?
Yes, this is a special ale from Lagunitas.
Oh, they're a good brewer.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Fantastic. I like that. I like the Lagunitas.
Yeah. So what's on your mind?
Well, did you hear about the leaked document? Just came out a little bit ago from the Trump administration, where they're trying to justify war, basically saying it has all these important economic and social purposes.
Yeah. The think tank.
Yeah, that's right.
But it wasn't supposed to get out.
Wasn't supposed to get out, but it was leaked out recently, and we got a copy of it.
And with this something to address here.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unsettling, but not necessarily untrue.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is unsettling. Like, is the idea that we should be on a constant war footing? I mean, that's what Lindsey Graham wants, right?
We're supposed to feel like, just like, feel like if you're a good human being says war is bad.
Yeah.
But what if war is good?
What if war is good?
That's rough.
About
That's
that?
a rough thought.
Okay, but first,
Yes.
Lagunitas Shugga, which reminds me of is it the Archies?
Yeah, you're right. Well, there's an interesting story behind this. So Brown Shugga
Right,
was their annual seasonal beer.
right.
High octane, malty, delicious beer. Well, one year they screwed up the recipe.
Yeah,
But the beauty of brewing
Yeah.
is sometimes most of the times if you screw it up, you just get a different beer.
yeah, exactly.
You don't throw it away.
It's not exactly what you were planning, but it's still beer.
So they, in a sort of self-effacing way, they released it as Lagunitas sucks, like, as an apology. But it was so good
Right.
that they kept brewing Lagunitas sucks for year after year.
Right.
And now what is this? This is the return of Brown Shugga, which is not even called Brown Shugga. It's just called
Shugga.
Shugga, the original recipe.
Yeah,
And it's not quite 10%. What are we coming in?
9.9.
Yes, it's only
just came in just under the mark. But wow, it is really good.
It is really beautiful.
It's got everything you expect out of a 9.9% dark amber malt forward kind of a beer.
But you would normally think if you dump a lot of brown sugar in your beer, it just kind of eats through it and doesn't leave any brown sugar behind.
Right.
I'm getting some brown sugar.
Yeah, so supposedly, if you put too much sugar in a beer, you get sort of a cidery kind of a flavor, but I'm not getting that at all. So they obviously have a lot of malt backbone in this.
Yeah.
To cover for that brown sugar, but wow. I'm getting a strong malt flavor, a little bit of booziness.
Right.
There's a whole lot. When you make a strong ABV, high ABV beer, you've got to have a lot of hop back there, and I can taste a lot of hops in the background. It's really good.
Yeah.
You wished, and here it is, the rich and caramelly original recipe.
Yeah. It's caramelly, and it's really, if you were just presented this and asked to put it in a category, I don't even know what strong ale, I guess.
Strong ale, barley wine, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they don't even claim to do
No.
anything. It's just
special ale.
It's just so special.
Yeah.
Doesn't need a category.
It's delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very good.
Is.
All right, so
Well,
what does this document say?
yes, so let's talk about what things like war is structurally necessary for society.
Right.
Yikes.
Yeah, I mean, so there are some political functions of war. Like it unifies the population. You know those things where the wag the dog movie where the president's in trouble, so they start a war because that gets everybody behind him, or at least it distracts people.
Yeah.
Right? So there is certainly that function. Creating an external enemy unites people.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
That it boosts industry and innovation.
Right. That's right. So there's a lot of industries in the United States that depend upon war. You know, they're making munitions, or they're making whatever it is that to feed the war machine.
Right, but it goes a little bit further in that not only is war good, peace is bad.
Yeah.
That peace would cause systemic collapse, and that we would be required to come up with substitutes for war.
Yeah.
Like
maybe the NFL or something.
Right. Well, yes. Well, it actually goes as far as saying human sacrifice.
Right. Yeah.
Basically, meaning the gladiators.
There's
the Romans said bread and circuses to distract the people. So
Yes.
if we did not have war to distract ourselves, we would need something more and more extreme.
Yeah. Hunger Games.
And yeah. So right. So football wouldn't be enough.
Yeah. It would have to be like blood football.
Yeah.
Or football with swords or something like that.
Right.
Because people have this bloodthirstiness about them, and there's this. It's part of human nature. It's not only part of human nature, it's part of chimp nature. Originally people thought that chimps were these peaceful hippies that lived in the woods.
Right.
It turns out chimps are incredibly violent.
Yeah,
they have their version of war and murder and everything else. So it's part of our DNA. It's part of our heritage that we just, we're rotten.
Yeah. And that even our democracy depends on it. They suggested that democracy is incompatible with lasting peace.
Right.
So that we need war to maintain democracy. Now, boy, this. Do you have any other? What are some other highlights of this thing that we didn't even get into here?
Yeah. So it's necessary for social stability.
Yeah.
It unifies people. It absorbs production. There's also this military Keynesianism, which is a $5 word. It means using military spending to stimulate the economy.
Right.
Right. And then there's the rot that you get in peacetime, where people become lazy and they start thinking about other things. They're not focused on the nation, and
you turn on each other.
Right.
Without
that's right.
you're more likely to have civil unrest.
Yeah.
So, well, this is...
It's disturbing.
It's a disturbing and sort of cynical view.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure it's entirely wrong, but I would like to not think that it's not true. I mean, of course, they're not saying it's true. This is just a think tank.
A think tank, yeah. And it reads like a policy analysis.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
just
I mean,
kind of a dry
Yeah.
policy analysis, going through the facts and the studies and citing people and saying, look, this is what we're finding sociologically and economically and everything else. Yeah.
Wow. Huh. So you're saying it just came out recently?
Well, actually, no.
Oh.
It came out in 1967.
1967, you say?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. So it
okay.
actually isn't Trump warmongering.
No, it isn't.
No, and that would be the Johnson administration.
How do you
I think,
know?
1967. But
To take it one step further.
yeah, and it wasn't real.
It wasn't real. So this is the Iron Mountain hoax.
Yeah.
Where in 1967 a satirical magazine called Monocle wrote a fake policy paper, and Esquire magazine
Picked it up.
published this 10,000 word review of this fake leaked think tank that was taking place under a mountain in upstate New York, and it was a must read in 1967.
And apparently the 10,000 word version in Esquire, there was a book that went along with it. That was only like 14,000 words. Or something.
Yeah.
And they published the excerpt was most of it. Yeah.
And it was, hoaxes are fun, but they have to strike the right chord at the right time.
Exactly. It's kind of like the H.G. Wells aliens are invading thing.
Yeah.
It's like this is something
Like 30
people are
years
nervous
earlier might
about.
not have worked.
Yeah, exactly. It has to be. You have to catch the wave just right. This is what people are nervous about. They think, I knew this was happening. You have to scratch the right itch, and this one happened just at the right time.
the book was issued to schools, and it was a big seller,
and it was right around during the
and the administration is going,
War.
oh my God, all right, it would take, it's going to take like 3 hours for them to call around, and all the bigwigs, they're going, all right, this is a complete hoax. The president's like, all right, is this really true?
Do we do this?
All right,
Who did this?
I can tell you no, but I'm going to look into it for 2 days, and then I come back and go, all right, this is a complete BS. But then a cynical public is going,
That's what you would say.
That's exactly what you would say.
If your secret document came out and you're caught flat-footed and you were looking at this horrible stuff, of course you would deny it.
So here, I'm thinking this is a time when we're really, I would say during the Eisenhower period, you've trusted your government more. I think this is a beginning of low trust.
Yeah.
And what's going on?
Think about what's happening. You have a bunch of assassinations.
Right.
You have Kennedy gets assassinated. Martin Luther King gets assassinated. The other Kennedy gets assassinated. You have the Vietnam War. All these revelations about the CIA. Everything else.
Questions about whether would your government lie to you?
Yeah, of course.
So now you've got
the Tuskegee experiment. I mean, there's all these things. All these things are coming out that make people really.
We're not bombing in Cambodia. We're not using Agent Orange on people. Where the Gulf of Tonkin. So you have the CIA is still really been developed in recent memory. It's like, what exactly are they doing? Well, they're trying to assassinate Castro, and it's like, but. We can't tell you what the CIA is doing, but trust us, what the CIA is doing is best for America.
Right.
And so I think you already had this climate when this hoax paper comes out. It was very easy for them to just go.
Of course, it just fit
100%.
It fit right in with the skepticism and cynicism about government.
And 1961 was Eisenhower's military-industrial complex speech.
Watch out for this. Exactly.
He'd already
primed it.
Teed it up. He says, we're going to, that unwarranted influence by weapons makers who influence policy, who will perpetuate war for their own benefit.
Yeah.
He'd already teed this
one up. He absolutely teed it up, because what he's saying is there are dark forces in the culture, in the society, that want to perpetuate war because that's good for the bottom line.
Yeah.
If you make cruise missiles, then you need to have somebody shooting them every once in a while.
Yeah, they're very expensive. You only get one shot at them. But if we're not shooting them at anybody, you're not making new ones.
That's right.
And so the idea that this fake think tank and its fake paper would catch fire
makes a lot of sense.
So but I don't want to dismiss this.
No.
As hooey. Because
it actually makes some interesting points.
It does. Just because it's a hoax doesn't mean it's not an interesting thought experiment.
That's right. That's exactly right. Just because it's made up doesn't mean that they're not pointing out some really interesting things. Like, for example, let's say that peace breaks out. And we have no war for 40 years.
Yeah.
Okay? None of our soldiers, none of our generals have ever experienced actual war.
Yeah. I thought about that at the first Gulf War. What is that, 90, 91?
Yeah.
Something like that. And I'm going, you now have captains and lieutenants and people who didn't engage in Vietnam. And now they're getting up there as senior officers. Yeah. And they've never seen war.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a cynical thing to say.
That's right.
But
if you're the president and you have to maintain a strong military force, you have to maintain a lethal, effective military force. It's really good to have to test them out from time to time.
You have to have combat veterans,
yeah.
and you've got new weapons systems that you don't know how they're going to function on the actual battlefield.
Yeah.
Like you've already, you've war gamed and planned everything, but that's no substitute for the real deal. And so, in a sense, to keep your muscles flexed, war is
kind of necessary. I mean, imagine what it would take for peace to break out over the whole earth, so that you could say, okay, fine, we don't need to prepare for another war because everybody trusts everybody. That's not going to happen.
No.
Supposedly the lion will lay with the lamb and all that kind of stuff, but that's not happening anytime soon without some serious intervention. So military readiness is obviously a huge issue. And then this issue of you always fight the last war, everybody's preparing for the previous war, not the next war. So
Right.
you need to do some updating. Like, for example, what's going on in Ukraine right now. Drones are a huge part
We're
of
just figuring out how drones are going to affect the battlefield.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and we don't know how that's going to work out. We don't know what's going to how's that going to work out on the sea. If we have some war with China over Taiwan or something like that, how do we know that a zillion little drones aren't going to take out our battleships and aircraft carriers? We don't know because we haven't been in that situation. So every once in a while, you need to. I mean, it's a rough thing to say, but every once in a while, you kind of need to bloody somebody's nose and get your own nose bloodied to find out what's happening.
yeah. So what about the social cohesion remarks?
Oh, sure.
in there?
I mean, to some extent, a culture defines itself in opposition to something.
Yeah.
Right? Like, back when we were growing up, we defined ourselves
We
as
grew up-
anti-communist.
we grew up Cold War, Russian fearing.
Right. I don't know what we're
Americans.
against now. Racism, sexism.
Well, see,
Yeah.
I think that's the problem. You turn on yourself.
Yeah.
You're when you don't have an external enemy,
Mm-hmm.
then it becomes it becomes the climate.
Mm-hmm.
People need to have something to believe in. Can I give you my Roman reference?
Sure.
So
What is the statistic? Men think about the Roman Empire at least once a week or something like that?
they ought to.
Yeah.
That's for sure. I have so many Roman feeds that coming through my.
One of my daughters
Netflix
called me
feeds.
up after that came up. One of my daughters called me up and said, "Have you thought about the Roman Empire this week?"
I tell you what, I have, and I'm going to tell you right now. The Punic Wars
Yeah.
were a series of wars in, say, roughly the 2nd century BC
Yeah.
between Rome and Carthage.
Not between Rome and Punia.
Yeah, what is
Why is
the
it
what is
Punic Wars? I don't know.
So which is North Africans, and the Roman statesman Cato would end each session of the Senate with, "And Carthage must be destroyed."
Right.
This was after they're in the middle of the Punic Wars. Cicero comes along a generation later, after Carthage has been destroyed,
Yeah.
and laments it all.
Right.
He's like, we need a strong adversary to keep from getting soft.
Yeah.
And what followed afterwards was civil war, and Julius Caesar and Mark Antony and all of that. It turned in on itself corruption, laziness, Roman generals who were less concerned about the Republic than they
Yeah.
were their own
Yeah.
glory, and so he was onto something there.
So what you imagine is the Roman emperor and the Carthaginian whatever he is, kind of sitting there on a boat out in the Mediterranean, saying, "Hey, look, we got to keep this going." And the Carthaginian guy says, "We're a little low on this. Oh, we got some extra. I'll send you some, just to make sure that you keep the war going." And they're having their fun
And they both get it. They both get the need for the external threat,
Right.
And
they just gotta
of course,
keep this going.
it's going to be a lot of bodies dropping
but what do
along
they
the way.
get? So what?
Well, I mean, for the sake of the Republic,
I don't.
that's
what they're there for.
Well, right. That's a couple 10,000
Exactly.
ordinary dudes.
That's right.
That's rough thinking.
It is rough thinking, but that's So one of the things that came up in this document is elites think in cold, functional terms. If you're at Davos, if your job is to think about not your family, not your neighborhood, not your bowling club, your job is to think about the world. You're thinking in very practical, cynical, mathematical terms about how do we keep billions of people in line.
Yes.
Yes. And they're thinking about things in very in a cold way. They want to say, what is the practical best policy that's going to keep 8 billion people alive?
Right. Or do we need 8
Or
billion
do we
people?
need 8 billion? Maybe we only need 4 billion.
Yes, but it's a very different worldview than the person that works at the Salvation Army who's just worried about the faces that are in front of them coming out, looking for a handout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now here's another kind of a cynical view of all this, which is, every organization exists to promote itself, to give itself more power, to become, to be better than it was 5 years ago.
Right. It may not have started that way, but every organization eventually lives to perpetuate itself.
Exactly.
It was built to address a problem.
Yeah.
And now it's just existing for its own sake.
There's probably still a military base to stop Napoleon from invading.
Well, there's still the German Marshall Fund. I'm like, are we still rebuilding Germany?
Right. Yeah.
What are these people even doing anymore?
We probably have forts to stop the Indians from...
when you see a quote attributed to somebody on X, you gotta look it up. Because you never know. One of them was, and this might be wrong, that Eisenhower saying, look, if America still has troops in Europe 10 years from now, then NATO has failed. It's a great quote, but it could be fake.
Right.
But it could be the kind of thing where you would just go, look, this NATO thing is totally temporary, and then everybody goes, there's always been NATO. It's like 1984. We've always had NATO.
We've always been at war with East Asia. Yes. That's right. Yeah. So if you're in the government and what you want to do is give the government more and more power. Well, war is a convenient way to do that. Think of the Patriot Act.
Yeah.
War or a crisis, COVID.
Yeah.
And any kind of a crisis is a great way to get more power for yourself, to get more control.
Yeah.
So in that respect, it does make sense for the government to want to continue and
because their reaction can always be, with a little bit more power, we can keep you safe from this war business. Because if not, gosh knows how what the trouble you guys would be in. So just a little bit more power, and a little bit more of your tax money, and we'll be fine.
And war also promotes innovation, like we were just talking about drone warfare in the Ukraine.
Right.
But think of all the things that have been developed for war. Like we went hiking in Maryland and we walked by this little chapel, and there was a plaque out front about the who built the chapel and why. And the person who built the chapel was like the wife of some man who invented some machine gun or something like that.
Okay.
He made all this money inventing this machine gun or something, and the wife used that money to build this little chapel.
Right.
But like that's where you get technological innovation. The space race, there's all these things people say about all the things, the ballpoint pen or I don't know what other kinds of things that were developed in the space race. And we like to think of the space race as, it's Star Trek and it's exploration. No, it was war. We were trying to beat the Soviets.
Yeah.
And
it was a proxy war.
It was a proxy war. That's right. So a lot of technological innovation happens because of this, because we need to make sure our missiles are faster than your missiles, that our radar can detect your stuff before it comes in. And so there's this constant back and forth. The Soviets and the Chinese supposedly, and there's no Soviets, the Russians and the Chinese supposedly have hypersonic missiles, right? So war promotes innovation, which is sometimes a good thing.
Right. And so this first came to my attention, the podcast Hoax.
Yeah.
So I listened to Noble Blood with Dana Schwartz, and this is a second podcast that she does with somebody else. Anyway, she says, kind of sounded like some undergrad stoners going, yeah, we're always preparing for war, but are we prepared for peace? Bro, that is so heavy. And that's kind of what the nature of this hoax thing was. It was like, dude, could we even handle peace, man? And while it is kind of jokey that way,
it's a good question.
Do we just kind of turn on ourselves
What do we do if we don't have an enemy? If we don't prepare for war, how do we prepare for peace? What do we do?
Right.
John Lennon is going to try to imagine it, but
yes,
it's
easy if you try.
But it's probably not easy.
No.
What would it be like if peace broke out all over the world?
So one of the other claims that people find, true or disturbing, but possibly true, is that war is the natural state of man.
Yeah. Well, that was like my chimpanzee argument earlier.
Yeah.
It's like that's.
Well, how about this way? Think of this: substitute war for conflict.
Okay.
So when people say myth, they sometimes mean something that's fake or a lie.
Right.
But myth, in terms of mythology, is the stories that we tell about ourselves. So when we look at mythology, we're like, what were we saying about our own selves when we tell this story? The story itself isn't true.
Yeah.
But the underlying thought is true.
You're right. The story, in a way, the story is not true, but in another way, the story is hyper true.
It's truer than not. Yes.
Yeah, right. So the story, the actual details of the story might not be like it never really happened.
Yes.
But it's the condensation of thousands of stories into one story.
And so think of the oldest stories that we tell about ourselves.
Right.
Back when there were only 4 people on the planet, what did 2 of them do?
Yeah, Cain killed Abel.
Cain killed Abel.
Right.
Well, and then, so that's the story we tell about ourselves. So it's like our understanding of our own nature.
Yeah.
How about Remus and Romulus?
Right.
The twin brothers who found Rome.
Yeah.
What happens? One of the Romulus kills Remus.
Yeah.
So it's like, why would that be part of your national story? Wouldn't you want to present yourself in the most positive light? Or is it with the greatest understanding of who we are? So the recognition of man at his fundamental nature is in conflict with himself is as old as anything.
Yeah.
It's not really a cynical idea to say that it is the natural state.
Think of the origin story for Israel. You have Jacob and Esau, and they're in conflict. Like from the moment that they're born, they're in conflict, right? Yeah, and that's supposed to justify the conflict between Israel and the surrounding nations. Or, I mean, even our country was born out of conflict. Everything seems to be born out of some sort of a war or struggle or conflict.
Right. And so for somebody to react to the fake story, the fake think tank report, and go, "Oh man, that is so cruel. That is such a terrible way to think of people."
I don't know. Is it really?
So one of the P&C principles, I think, is the recognition that the reason that free market capitalism is better than communism is that one recognizes the true nature of man.
Right.
So that communism thinks of man as a blank slate or essentially good or whatever. It's that the systems around him make him bad.
Yeah.
And so if we only correct the systems,
we can make the new
tear
Soviet
down
man,
all of the
right,
current systems and rebuild fresh systems, then man will get better. While on our side, we're like, all right, we're kind of fundamentally selfish and rotten, so we need a system that works with that.
Yes.
And so this fake think tank that recognizes that war is the natural state, that's not, in fact, not only is it not crazy, it's probably the right way to approach it.
Yeah, so if you think you're like this John Lennon peacenik love kind of, do you watch murder mysteries? Do you read murder mysteries? Do you watch Agatha Christie? Like Agatha Christie, this tiny little town, people are dying left and right all over the place. Why is this happening? But no, we are fascinated by these kind of cruel acts that people commit.
Right.
I remember I loved Columbo when I was a kid. Somebody's killed every week on Columbo. So this idea that we're just going to all of a sudden be peaceful, it's like, how's that going to work?
No, we were just going to find other conflicts.
Yeah.
And where do you want your conflicting nature to be projected outward or inward. And I mean, I wish
Outward provides more cohesion and stability inside of a culture.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean that we should be looking for a fight all the time, but I think recognizing the fundamental nature is beneficial, is helpful, and maybe we'll have to realize that we have a conflict-oriented energy that needs to be channeled.
Yeah.
I think, maybe that is the bread and circuses, and that is why professional sports are so big. That is why I remember when they first started MMA. I was just like, wait a minute. We used to have judo fights judo, boxers fight boxers. Now we're just gonna let anybody do anything and fight anybody in any way. It's like human chicken fighting, and it's enormously popular, and we like that stuff.
Yeah, we do. I mean, because it's...
Maybe it's the proper outlet.
It's an outlet, for sure. It shows humans at their sort of peak performance. Right. It shows men being... Well, unfortunately, you've also got female MMA, which is a catastrophe. But anyway, you've got men training for this kind of fight that is pretty impressive just to watch. But then, here's the funny thing about men that a lot of people don't understand. Men can have a fight and then get up and, shake hands and go have a beer and be friends afterwards.
Right.
There's something weird about war like that. You see the American soldiers go meet with their Japanese counterparts,
Okay.
And,
hey, war's war.
I know.
Sorry about that.
I'm sorry. You were fighting for your country. I was fighting for mine. That's the way it goes. So, war, what is it good for?
I guess a lot of stuff. I mean, I don't like to admit it, and especially when it comes revealed to you in the form of a hoax. But is it really?
It's really astonishing how perfectly timed this particular hoax. I mean, that's why it became such a big deal, because it fit into the times exactly right. And it scratched the itch, and it was the right thing to say at the right time in history.
Right, but the fundamental ideas aren't
shouldn't be dismissed.
Shouldn't be dismissed, and they aren't limited to that special time.
That's
that special time is why that hoax took shape the way it did.
Yes.
But just because it was a hoax
doesn't mean it wasn't true.
It's like the myth thing we just talked about.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's sort of hyper true.
Right. Maybe there was no Romulus and Remus. That doesn't mean
That's right.
It ain't true.
That's right. Yes, it's not true, but it's really true.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks so much for listening to Beer and Conversation with Pigweed and Crowhill. Remember to visit us at pigweedandcrowhill.com or send us an email at pigweedshow@gmail.com.